The Right to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use promo code RTRS when you sign up. And brought to you by Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Get yours with the Process Pup patches only at bigbarker.com/Ricky. Touchstone Electric Fireplaces. Get yours for 15% off at zerodeadbirds.com. Use promo code TTP. And LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Right to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. On the pod today, holy smokes, a long time coming, I think. In some ways, it seems appropriate. Daryl Morey, general manager of the Houston Rockets, joins us. Talk about Sam Hinkie and Robert Covington and whatever else we talked to him about, because we're recording this before we've talked to Daryl Morey. So, boy, the offseason is ending in an incredible way. And it ends in an incredible way as we actually have Sixers basketball to talk about. Like they played... boy, the hype train is at 100 again. Would you agree, Mike? At least 100.
We needed it.
Yeah, we surely did. Before we get going, a few things. The playoff T-shirt, the tie-dye hostage Orlando playoffs T-shirt is available now at rightstorikisanchez.com. The DraftKings hostage playoffs pool is free to play and $500 prize. I would go over on the Simmons threes, as I've been saying. Just go to rightstorikisanchez.com to enter that. And my Chuck talk, if you need more of me and Chuck Klosterman, I am hosting a thing on Wednesday night with him, sponsored by the Midtown Scholar bookstore. Just go to this post on rightstorikisanchez.com to sign up for it, register for that, and buy the book with promo code RTRS. Get free shipping and a free book from Chuck. And finally, we want to send love to the Wall family, as a longtime process pup, Trotter, passed away this week. I got a couple of messages from people that now when we talk about these things, they get teary-eyed too. Trotter was 14 years old, walked down Broad Street after the Phillies won the World Series in 2008, and was adopted very young from ACT Philly, which is a great shelter in Philadelphia. A lot of pit bulls at ACT, and they always need a lot of help. So we wanted to thank the Wall family for sharing the news about Trotter, and wanted to send them our love, and rest in peace, Trotter. Without any further ado, Amos and the Chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who got up super early, just like in the good old days of the Ricky, so we could talk to Daryl Morey. That is Mike Levin. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's time now. We just interviewed him, so I am now awake. But at the beginning of that, I don't know that I was.
Yeah. Daryl, you very excited about it. Daryl, the interview with Daryl is really awesome. So don't skip this part, obviously, because for a lot of people, it's been a long time since we talked about actual Sixers basketball.
A game.
An actual game. And before we get going, I do want to send a thank you out to. So we are, assuming that all of this continues, and it looks like it's going to, we're ending like the craziest offseason we've ever had, believe it or not, somehow in the history of the podcast. 4.5 months of unexpected offseason in which we decided to podcast twice a week anyway. And I just wanted to thank, because it has been a source of actual stability in my life during this. I wanted to not only, and we'll name all the people that were on, but I want to thank all of the people who listened, who send us notes that were like, thank you for doing it during this. I think it was really nice to know that people stuck by us during this. And for me, it was like having them be part of it and doing this with you twice a week was like this. All right, well, everything's falling apart, but we do this on the internet, so we can do it anyway. Was just sort of a nice source of like one part of normalcy, as unnormal as this is. So I'm appreciative of everyone.
And we always do it from far away, so it really didn't.
Yeah, it didn't change anything. The list of guests. So this is who we ended up having. We had Amos and Mutlu twice. We finally had Eliza Hardy-Jones on. Matt from Mount Joy. Hassan Bennett, who was wrongly convicted of murder, spent 13 years in jail, and then acted as his own lawyer to win in the trial. We had that guy on the radio. We had Alyssa, your girlfriend, and Taylor from their podcast, Table Flipping Podcast. My all-time favorite singer, Butch Walker. We had Kevin Arnovitz, Larry Hughes, world champion bowler Bill O'Neill, our dads, Glenn and Howard, Chris Ryan, G Love, Greg from Colony Meadery, Eric from Big Barker, Sylvester Mobley from Coded by Kids, Justina from Providence Animal Center, John Gonzalez and Colleen Wolfe, Ben from Kinetic, Kornblau, LL, Adam Kasabi, Kevin O'Connor, Chuck Klosterman, presidential candidate Andrew Yang, and today Daryl Morey. Like, it was a pretty like intense run for a podcast that never actually even liked having guests. It was a pretty awesome run of guests, I thought.
Solid run.
Yeah.
And shockingly more to come.
Yes. Yes, you never know. So a game happened yesterday. And why don't we make our coverage of the game, or talk about the game, brought to you by Kinetic Skateboarding. I don't know if you saw this week, they did the Ben & Jerry's, or no, it was the Grateful Dead Nike SB Dunks, like, that they had a raffle for. They always get those shoes, and I always feel bad for Ben every time they get those shoes because they get a limited number, or they have people camping outside the store. But that's where you get stuff you can't find anywhere else. Our friends at Kinetic Skateboarding get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver at kineticskateboarding.com. There was a game yesterday, Mike. And before we talk about the actual game, I actually thought watching a game without any of the fans, like, the actual experience of watching the game looked pretty normal to me. I don't know. It didn't strike me that there weren't fans.
Yeah, I would say basketball is the sport that will be able to hang the most with no fans, because baseball's weird. It's just weird, and it's pretty static as it is.
Yeah.
And so not having the energy of the crowd, and even just like the milieu of the crowd to hype up a moment, even it's the 8th inning, 9th inning, you start to get tense, whatever.
Even
that's gone.
Visually seeing all the open seats is like striking. I think when it's just pitcher and catcher and batter, it's fine, but then when they pull back and you see the whole thing, it's weird. Yeah.
But basketball, it's like we've seen, first of all, TBT was on, and Summer League is not, we've seen enough Orlando Summer League to know what it's like in an empty gym.
Utah.
And Utah as well. There's plenty of that. And I think basketball, you can, when it's an intense moment, you can see the players play more intense, if you need to feel that like energy, to indicate one way or the other. But yeah, it was good. I thought, people had, some issues with how loud the dribbling was, and the rims sound kind of weird, but they'll adjust that or whatever. And it doesn't super matter to me, but I love that it was a home game, and there's still some, like, Here Come the Sixers played at the end. That was something I was, wondering about, and I'm very happy about it. It's funny that the same court, the Sixers will, if they win, if they're home or away, despite there being no other tangible differences.
Yeah. Mr. Burns, excellent. I think when there was a free throw, I think we heard that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, what a game, man. They obviously looked rusty, for a bunch of moments, and there were a couple like really clunky, everybody's in the lane type moments, and some weird passes, or like shooting into, like, dribbling into traffic or whatever. Fine, but holy shit, like, that was very necessary for me to see, and what a beautiful thing, all of it. So many good things to talk about.
Well, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Simmons shooting as the first part of it. You called
2 threes, and he delivered for you.
Yeah, I've been feeling like I think, I don't know why, but previously when we've seen these in the gym, I just haven't bought it. And we've seen it a lot. And to your point, you needed to see it to believe it. I think a lot of people were there. We've seen this. But to me, and I know a lot of people laugh or shake their head or think I'm like Mr. Anti-Ben guy when I say this. But to me, the actual decision from him and the team to say there will be another person who we will refer to as a point guard, and a significant decision that your role as Ben is not going to be everything. It will still be everything, but it is going to be different, was a decision that like meant other things. And I really think that he has to know. He has to, because I think playing point guard and having the ball a lot in some ways protected him against having to shoot, because he'd have the ball and he didn't, you know what I mean? Like there were other things to do. When you're part of the offense and not the ball handler, it puts you in that position. And both of them looked comfortable and fine. And even the first one, the guy was not on him, but he was on him. It wasn't like he was just sitting there wide open.
Yeah, Kyle Anderson, that was the closest he's taken a three with anyone around, for sure.
And look, his hands are still not in the right place, but that's how he's going to fucking shoot. Like he's never going to fix his form. So
his feet couldn't be less square.
Yeah, but he's going to have to be one of those guys, and there are plenty of players that do this, from like Tim Hardaway to Sean Marion to like perfecting as best you can the wrong way to shoot so it goes in. And he looked comfortable shooting them both, and he's going to shoot them. Like he's going to, and especially him missing the first one.
Love that he missed the first one.
Well, I love that he missed the first one and he shot a second one.
Absolutely.
That is the move because his whole thing is doing things that don't always have a good result. Somehow he'll take fucking every hook shot in the post known to man. And keep taking them. But the three, like, it worried me that he missed the first one. He wasn't going to take the second, but he took the second and he made it. And like, he's going to shoot him. He's going to shoot.
Corner threes, sponsored by Alonzo Jones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on, man. No, I was really happy about it. It was a shockingly enjoyable scrimmage. Even as they started to give up the lead, I was still having a great time. Really just nice to have these people back who are intent on just beating the shit out of my subconscious and making me think about them all the time and breaking my heart. And I'm ready for it. I had to protect myself against Ben a little bit, just because it's like we've seen it in practice, but those look different. There was no one was yelling for him to do it.
Yeah,
it was
Joel
just him
screaming at him to shoot.
No, it was just him taking a regular shot. And as Daryl later points out in the podcast, like we've just had so many times in Philadelphia that there were people that just like wouldn't shoot, couldn't shoot, didn't have, if only he has the shot kind of thing. And for one of them to work out is so foreign to me. Not that he's going to all of a sudden become JJ Redick, but just a willingness to shoot like two or three times a game is so good. It's so good for the offense. It's so good for everybody. Just like losing the elephant in the room is such a nice thing. We can just play a little more free. Everyone doesn't have to tighten their sphincter as they're like, well, is he going to shoot? When is that? What's the deal with that? Why can we talk to him about it? Like, I'm sure it was just been weird for everyone forever. And I'm glad that Ben's we're going to so much like analysis with this team, like all the time, but I'm just glad
that's what it is. I mean, that's what it is. And I also believe that Brett was definitely at a fuck it sort of moment with talking about it before it happened, because I believe he didn't have to say anything about Ben shooting threes. Like he could have given a standard answer, but he gave, even before the game, he continued to say there's been a shift in how he's thinking, he's doing it. And I think to a certain extent, Brett knows where he is in his like, in how, shaky his future is with the team. And I think to a certain extent, he's like, fuck it. This guy's doing it in practice. I'm going to tell everybody he's doing it in practice. And if he doesn't do it in the games, that's on fucking him.
And if you shoot, you will save my job.
Yeah. Yeah, I truly believe that he is sort of at a fuck it moment.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I also, Embiid I thought looked rusty, but generally fine, especially defensively. I thought he was moving pretty nicely. He fell down early. Does he trip over like a ref?
Yeah, he jumped over. Well, didn't he jump over? Yes, he fell down early, but then didn't fall. There was another time where he stopped himself from falling down. But
Yeah.
there was a fall early. It was definitely a first quarter.
All the greatest hits of
Yeah.
Sixers concern were all back in full display. But I thought he was fine after like Brett saying, I don't think we've talked about this, but that Horford and Embiid have not played on the same practice team together.
No.
Memphis is a team that you can do that against because they do kind of still start two traditional bigs in Jaren Jackson and Jonas Valanciunas plus Gorgie Jang and Brandon Clark, who I love. So it makes it easier rather than if it's somebody that plays more like just outside inside guys. But I thought they looked theoretically fine. Al looked okay. He missed a couple layups and did the clap, which is crazy. There's something that I will have nightmares about him clapping after a missed layup for sure, or a missed little baseline jumper wide open.
Wait, a quick Horford note. So I was going through with our friends at Crack Bell who sell our T-shirts, and we put a bunch of the old T-shirts on sale that we're never gonna print again. And like there's some up there that are like $12, $13, whatever. And I asked them how many of each one are left.
I think there's plenty of Horfords.
Well, we sold a lot of Horfords. It's like our second or third most popular shirt ever. But I told them, I'm like, I feel like we could have a Horford moment, and those shirts will be in demand again. I was like, don't put them on sale. I was like, regular price on the Horford shirt. I believe in the Horford shirts. I don't.
Wow, what a commitment.
Yeah.
No, I mean, he looked okay. He was moving around a little bit. I don't think that all of a sudden we're going to see like 2015 Al. But just needs to be fine enough. I thought he disrupted a couple lobs and just like played that a little bit better. That's the most frustrating thing about Al defensively is how often it seemed like he would get caught in no man's land in between a driving guard that could hit an easy, 4-foot floater over him or just finish around him at the rim, or between that and the guy that's just a lob threat behind him. And it seemed like always Al was just kind of standing there and like getting like lightly dunked on every single time. And I would love that to be cleaned up. And that's the thing that you don't even appreciate as much visually about Embiid because he just does it so naturally. He has such just like a sixth sense about where to stand and how to affect people's shots at the rim without committing one way or the other. He just kind of can play both guys at the same time. It's really impressive. And so Al being just a little older and a little less long and physical means it's harder to do, but I thought he did a nice job.
Yeah, it's Joel's instincts, but it's also the fact that he is so quick and so enormous that allows him to make up for the fact when his instincts are wrong. Yeah, I agree on Embiid. He seemed pretty comfortable taking threes, which he always has. The Ben, so like there were two moments that I did like the interplay between Milton and Simmons. Like I love the Simmons at the elbow stuff.
Absolutely.
I thought that was good. And I also thought there was a nice sort of like, Embiid's not going to be a pick and roll guy. People talk about using him in pick and roll all the time. He's not a roller. He doesn't like doing it. He's rarely going to do it. But but like that, he can be a pick and pop guy. He's a good 17-foot jumper guy. And there was a really nice pick and pop with him and Milton that I liked. And him shooting a 16-footer, like when people talk about long twos, they're talking about 19 and 20 footers. See, I'm okay with him taking 16 footers. He's a good shooter, and I think I'm good with that. Like I think that's an effective play for them to run.
Yeah, it's just got to be right. I would prefer he take more threes.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer he try to get to the rim, but you sometimes have to use that mid range, especially in the playoffs. You use their mid range to set up the like pump fake and drive, and like get fouled type thing.
Yeah.
supposedly he's worked on, the word going into the bubble was that he worked on his post footwork a lot, and we didn't really see it that much, I would say. Valanciunas always has been a little bit difficult for him for some reason.
Yeah.
Um, and
Valanciunas is one of those guys. It's the big sort of there's almost a type.
yeah,
Yeah.
because Embiid like pretty much destroys Bam. Like at least to my eye, I'd have to look at the numbers to be sure, but in my mind, Bam's just not big enough to handle Embiid. But like a guy like Valanciunas or Gasol, or I mean, I guess Horford was an exception. He's not that big, was just long enough to do it. But like,
But he's sturdy.
yeah,
Alice sturdy, doesn't move.
yeah, seems like he moves a lot more now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Shake, you mentioned. I mean, also the Ben alley-oop to Tobias, no look,
Oh.
35, unbelievable. Just that's ridiculous.
So after that play, quick question. So I was watching it at work, and I was sort of like half distracted when it happened.
Oh.
But when I was obviously watching at work. I work at a sports radio station. I'm allowed to watch it. I'm like, why am I trying to cover up the fact that I was watching it at work? I work at WIP. We're all watching it. So he threw it, and then he started yelling at somebody. Was he complaining to a ref, or was he sort of like talking shit after it happened? Do you remember that? Did you see
My
it?
read on that was that he turned around to the Sixers bench and
Okay.
was like saying something, but I guess it could be complaining to a ref. I thought it was more of like a playful taunting.
Yeah,
situation.
I couldn't tell because he went out of the frame pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
As well, I think just to check in on the Napa wine situation,
Mm-hmm.
seems positive. There was the like bench doing some standing up, sitting down
Mm-hmm.
goofiness with Shayak's free throws.
Yeah.
The bench was having fun with Kylo Quinn almost dunking in transition.
Yeah. The Norvell Pell 3.
The Norvell Pell step back three, which was ridiculous. Norvell played really well.
Yeah.
He rolled really nicely and had a few nice blocks, and I thought like played way more under control and like he knew what he was doing than we saw him earlier this season. So who knows? Obviously, he will be called upon if Al or Joel gets hurt, God forbid. So it was nice to see that. But it's we talked to Daryl a little bit about it, but like this, it's cool that these guys who we've been wanting to just like gel and connect and bond and stuff. And obviously, it mostly starts from the top as far as Ben and Joe go. But we've been wanting these guys, and I would add Tobias to that. We've been wanting these guys to just feel like there's some chemistry, feels like there's some like shared.
Yeah. Well, it's forced now. They have to
goal.
do it.
Yeah, but this idea like they have the same goals. They're only around each other. They're like playing for each other a little bit. And I know it's corny and sounds a little bit Remember the Titans-y, but like they're as unimportant as their mission is. Like this is the mission. They're there. They are kind of sacrificing their lives. We're putting their lives on the line a little, as weird as it is to say, to go do this thing. And they're now like playing for and with each other. And I all the golfing and fishing and Matisse's vlogs. Hopefully, it all just kind of adds up to being there's a better sense of chemistry and consistency of this team, and they will communicate and work for each other more.
Furk looked pretty good. He hasn't had a haircut, which I enjoy. I love I mentioned at one point.
Do you see the jeans? The jeans.
Yes, the video. Yeah,
I love it.
One time I mentioned that Furk sort of reminds me. I forget what the actor's name is, but the guy that played Michael Rappaport's roommate in Higher Learning. I forget the guy, but he reminds me of him. Like Furk looks like a Jewish kid from high school, and like that I would know from Episcopal, and like seeing his hair all like curly and big, like just sort of adds to that. Yeah, there's
something about, and I hope this isn't offensive, but there's something so delightful to me, and there was with Dario, of just like guys who don't really speak the language but are like still hang.
Yes.
And like they're so likable. It's really just what a treat that they both of those guys are. And yeah, I love those guys. Tobias ringing the bell. Tobias had a nice game and then rang the bell, and it was Korkmaz's birthday, so he said this is for Furk. I thought that was pretty nice, and I definitely also shouts to Tobias for, you know, talking about Breonna Taylor every post game interview at Mike Scott did as well. It's got to be so weird for these guys to determine like we're having fun, but we're also like here to make a point and use the platform, and it's a lot of responsibility, but
I believe they can do both. I like.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I just salute them for doing it and putting the work in. Obviously, LeBron and a bunch of guys are talking about it, but man, how much pressure do you need to arrest people for murder? For real, just very obvious, and they're still not happening. So that's just the way it goes in Kentucky. Back to the Sixers. Matisse got there and immediately got his hands in a passing lane, which I loved. What a beautiful thing. But he didn't shoot well. But he did, tell me if you agree, attacked off the dribble a lot, closed out a lot, and looked way more comfortable doing it than he had earlier in the season. Obviously, the two-handed dunk over Jaren Jackson was excellent, but a couple other times he was like driving to pass and just to keep the thing moving. And I really liked what I saw there.
I kind of wish he would. I agree. So what the dunk made me think of, even though with his hair as big as it is and his body tiny, he does look like NBA Jam big head mode to me when he dunks like that, is he is more explosive sometimes offensively than he plays physically. And like sometimes I just wish he would KJ-esque, like one dribble and go.
KJ McDaniels?
Yeah. Well, no.
Have a season of KJ McDaniels?
No. He just reminds me, like, physically, when he just, like, I think he is more athletic than he plays sometimes. And I think that dunk, if you go and you watch that dunk, he gets very high very quickly and finishes over somebody.
Yeah, over a really good shot blocker.
Right. Like, and I think that there's a possibility that if he can get the one or two dribbles down, that like his explosiveness, he's not gonna have to like cross somebody up. He's just gonna need to be able to like get the ball, take two dribbles, and explode.
Yeah.
And I think he could like be a guy that gets to the line actually, and with that explosiveness, because I think people are gonna foul him. I do agree. He always looks comfortable shooting whether it goes in or not. Like they need to go in. It's gonna be really interesting to see how the rotation shakes out. I still think we're going to see probably more Glenn Robinson than we would all expect or vote on.
I thought he was fine.
Yeah, he is. He's a fine player, but I just get the sense that Brett has always had a short leash with guys like Matisse and his age in important situations. So.
Right, I think Matisse with his defensive instincts and awareness and ability to like change a game, I think Brett is more willing to do that than he would be if it has that on offense, right?
Yeah.
If he was totally lost on offense or on defense and was able to like get you a couple buckets on offense, I think Brett would have that quick hook. But I think defensively he's fine just being like, really, there's no, Matisse offensively, go stand in the corner, shoot it when the ball's coming, when you have an open shot. Like that's pretty much what you got to do. And he cuts nicely and stuff. I thought Glenn Robinson was pretty good. I thought that Alec Burks actually had some serviceable moments. I think that like especially with Ben now primarily playing the 4, even though he's going to bring the ball up and even though he's going to do it in transition, like for sure, of course, he's a hybrid of everything.
Especially when Shake is not on the court.
Right, when Shake is not on the court, I think Brett is really entertaining the idea that Burks could handle the load alongside Josh Richardson. I don't think he trusts either of them to do it consistently, and I think Neto's also in the picture there because supposedly had a really good camp. But I think the Josh Richardson point guard experiment, even in any capacity, is over.
Yeah.
And so I think the rest of the scrimmages and probably into the 8-game season, you're going to see some Burks, some Neto, like with those guys. You need ball handlers in the playoffs. You need guys that can like create a little bit, or at least attack a little bit. And so having a couple of those guys, even though Neto did play pretty bad, on the court at the same time gives you a little bit more versatility when it's if Embiid's not on there, or if Ben's not on there.
You mentioned Richardson. This is a like sort of an out of place thought, but I thought about it watching him. Is that he is the guy, like he is a good trade piece in that I think he is a good player. I do not think he's worth more than he's making.
No.
And he's going to get paid more than he's making, and he's not. He is like he is a $12 million player. He's like a $10 to $12 million player, and I
think that might be what he gets.
Oh, really? Well, it depends. Who knows what's going to happen with money?
He's had a pretty middling year. I think he's good in the locker room, and I think he works on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And the shot is okay. He can shoot a little off the dribble. He can make a few things happen, but he's not an intuitive passer. He's not as good of a passer as Shake is, and even Shake is still learning and growing. I think Shake, with like brief aside, I love Shake Gilgeous-Alexander, and I always have. Shake has a little bit of that like level of like not quick burner speed, but just like control and length and stuff.
Yeah.
Shake's not the passer that Shea is, but he's certainly capable. Josh just doesn't have any of that really, but he is a dog on defense, and I think he's a winning type of player that will go somewhere. I don't think it's here. I think he's gone this offseason. I think you're right.
Yeah, I like him. I want to be clear, I like him, but it was one of the things I said early on is the thing about him, like what we expected him as like an offensive player is that when you're the primary offensive player and you're only averaging 16.7 points a game or whatever he was in Miami, that's a sign. Like when you have the ball as much as you want and that's all that you're scoring and you're averaging 4 assists or whatever the fuck he is, like, I don't know. It's just when you have that opportunity and that's really what you eke out, I just think it says something about what your limitations are offensively.
Yeah, he's just limited. I think he's he's a kind of jack of all trades, master of none guy that is like helpful to any team.
Mm-hmm.
But the Sixers having so many guys that just aren't quick shooters right away, they need a guy there that will be. And Shake, you can see, has improved that so much, and just being willing to go. If they go behind a screen on him, he's gonna rise up. And so I would love if, like right now, you would trade Josh Richardson for Seth Curry, right?
Yeah, so Seth Curry is one of those guys that like I feel like I would like to watch 7 games of him in full before I say yes. I would trade him for the idea of Seth Curry.
Sure. Yeah. This idea of like a guy that could at least run the offense a little bit, be the focal point for a time, play a little 2-man game with Embiid, and then, when it's a defensive possession time, the Sixers have enough guys that can step in and play defense, so you don't count on that kind of player too.
What's the Dinwiddie trade too?
Yeah,
I mean,
I would love, I'd love the Dinwiddie trade for sure. I mean, honestly, yeah, Dinwiddie's excellent. Him and Shake now have a lot of similar overlapping skills and stuff, but
I think they could play together.
Yeah, I love watching Shake play in the pick and roll. His confidence has grown so much. Like, do you remember Summer League? This past Summer League, which was forever, he just couldn't hit anything,
it was just
he wouldn't even come out because I was there pretending to be a reporter, and he wouldn't even come out afterwards to like talk to media. He was like so devastated, and so I
said Shayok would get more meaningful minutes than Shake would during the season after Summer League,
and here we are, and he's starting. Yeah. It's unbelievable how much confidence grown. Sometimes it just locks in of just understanding NBA speed and stuff, and he's a really, really legitimate shooter from all over the court, and he's gotten better at finishing inside to where he's using his length. Like I think at times, like he's not the most athletic guy. He's definitely not the strongest guy, but his length and his just shiftiness is that so he can get where he wants to get on the court. And like you see this, the way that people respect the jumper now opens up every other aspect of his game. Yeah. And I think he's so legit. I really, really love the guy.
I'd really, if there's one physical thing I would like him to get a little bit stronger. Like I think when you look at guys like, you compared him to McGrady, so I might as well say fucking Harden. But like when you look at guys like Harden and why can I never remember his name in Orlando? That you shouldn't Google his name with the bad hair.
Evan Fournier.
Fournier. When you look at guys like that, the guys that are shifty, they have to physically be able to put somebody like on their back shoulder and sort of like keep them away, and that's a strength. it's a positioning thing, but it's also about being like strong and having the physical ability to do it. And you can tell that he has the positioningness and the shiftiness. He just needs to be a little bit stronger, and I think that would be important for him.
Right. Well, Tobias has that, right? Tobias is never gonna like create for other people. He's never gonna do anything like exquisite with the ball in his hands. But he's gonna use his like a light, but not a push off, but a very like firm shoulder that can give him enough space to rise up and shoot over you from wherever. And so you just need a little bit of that with Shake. Shake's been using like these pretty hefty step backs to and just like change of pace to like be able to create space for himself. But it'd be nice if he can, because he is tall and guys, Dame Lillard or whatever is going to cover him at times. It'd be nice if you could be like, well, I'm not only bigger than you, but I'm also strong enough to be able to get where I want to get.
Before we get to Daryl Morey, do you want to do Carl Landry Record Club, or you want to hold it for next week?
Let's hold. I also just wanted to say, do you notice the Sixers, and maybe it's like I think that in some sense the defense, it's rusty, and their communication looks better, obviously, than it had in many points in the season. But they still give up way too many wide open threes off of one pass. And I don't know how it happens. Like, why is a guy cheating off of his assignment so far that just simply one pass from kind of wherever allows an open three? It's very confusing to me, and I wonder if it's just when do we double lack of clarity there? But
you know what? That should be Mike O'Connor, I'm sure you're listening to this. I mean, I guess I could email you. You're part of our staff. By the way, so the podcast is on YouTube now. You can see, you can watch everything. I recommend watching the part with Morey when we tell him that there are 7 people that are part of our organization. We're talking about Sixers Adam, and we say, yeah, he works for us. He's like, ha, 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 yeah. And I'm like, no. But Mike O'Connor, I think that would be a good question for MOC because he's a big Brett questioner. And I think that might be a scheme question that he could come up with. But yes, I noticed as well.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
This is great. I loved watching them win. That was really delightful. I really enjoyed this Daryl Morey interview, and I'm going to go watch some WNBA basketball.
Before we do, today's opening day for WNBA, right? Yeah. Before we do, let's talk about our sponsor, Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. We made mention about Trotter at the top of the pod, who passed away, who is a processed pup. I want to make a note to anyone who's already purchased a Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Bed. There's big news coming from Big Barker soon, and they could use your help. If you've previously purchased a Big Barker and you have noticed an increase in sort of mobility and comfort from your dog because of that, because it is engineered by experts, send a note to Eric@BigBarker.com.
What's comfort look like?
Well, I think you can tell.
You notice your dog's more comfortable, he's walking around with a little
so my
sort of cool gait.
I think so. My cat, she's doing okay. My cat Alabama is 15 years old. Ended up in the ER for fucking 3 days this week.
Jesus.
Yeah, she's gonna be okay, thankfully. But I noticed when pets start getting older, I think you notice their creaks and they're how they get around, how they get up onto when they jump onto the couch or jump up onto the bed or those sorts of things. And I think that's how you notice how spry they are and that sort of thing. So if you've noticed an improvement in your dog's or your cat's movement with a Big Barker, send a note to Eric. BigBarker.com, Eric@BigBarker.com. BigBarker.com/Ricky. BigBarker.com/Ricky is where you get the Big Barker dog bed with the processed pup patches. That's how you get I'm rebuilding the gallery on RightsToRickySanchez.com because I don't like the way it works right now. But if you get your dog that Big Barker and take a picture of your dog on the Big Barker, send it to us at RightsToRickySanchez@gmail.com, and we will put the we'll put the photo up on the gallery, the Process Pup Gallery on RightsToRickySanchez.com. These are all of the dogs. I think it is meaningful that we hear years afterwards from people who have bought Big Barkers from hearing about them on the podcast, and how happy people are with the bed, and how quickly dogs acclaim is the word to the bed. How quickly they adjust to the bed. Whatever. Most beds are shit, They're very thin. They provide no support at all. Big Barker dog beds are the opposite. Although it is called Big Barker, they have them every size, even for your tiny little dog. That's the Barker Junior, and like this is, dogs have plenty of joints and they need to be supported. Just
So
like
many.
so many joints. I notice when I sleep on a bad mattress that I feel worse in the morning. Your dog is no different. So 10-year warranty with the Big Barker dog bed. The foam doesn't flatten or they replace it for free. A 1-year at-home trial. If you don't love it, they will pay for the shipping and give you a full refund. And it is made right here in the Delaware Valley, handmade in the US of A. Big Barker dog beds. And now our interview with one Daryl Morey.
All right.
Wow, there you are.
What's up? I like the Rockets hat.
Yeah, well, I thought I would, show some respect with you. I've never worn a Sixers hat on the pod, so.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, I don't wear the team gear.
He likes to make his little statements.
Yeah.
That's your quiet protest. You spend thousands of hours doing podcasts, but by not wearing their gear, you can send your protest to moves you don't like? Or...
Yeah. I remember the first time I did it was a fan appreciation night. It was after they let go of Sam, and it was the final game of the year, and I had like $150 left in credit for the building that I could spend anywhere, and I went to the team store and bought a bunch of Flyers shit, and I was like, "This is fun."
There you go. Hey, man, it's like protesting in the streets, man. Those
Yeah.
big statements,
You ready? You ready to go?
Yeah, sure, whatever.
All right.
Well, one second, hold on.
All right.
Oh, here we go.
I have a big cornhole match coming up, and if I don't take the pain medication, I'm not gonna play well. So
Just so you know, he is Spike, I am Mike.
Yeah.
Just
gotcha.
to differentiate.
There we go.
I'm familiar. I've listened to you guys. So.
All right.
Oh,
Cool.
wow.
Well, there he is, general manager of the Houston Rockets, Daryl Morey. We were recording the intro to this, and I said, for some reason, it's been a long time coming, and it really hasn't, in that you are not a Sixers and have not worked for the Sixers, but for some reason, obviously the Sam connection, it feels like you are part of our whole community in some way. So
I feel that way too, because Sam's obviously a good friend to this day, and he's gone on to do better things in the world, and I'm still slogging away in basketball. So
Yeah, I was wondering about
Sam
that.
was always meant for more, though. He was always meant for more, I think. So.
Okay, so you always felt that, because were you surprised at all that once he, left the Sixers, it hasn't been a return to basketball in some way?
I thought he'd come back, and I think, he sort of went through a journey to figure out what he wanted to do, and you could ask him about that, but
Shaving his head is one thing.
Yeah.
he grew like a huge beard.
Yeah.
It was like the David Letterman beard. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I obviously the letter is one of these iconic things now that I knew Sam could write, because he wrote me a letter when he left the Rockets, which honestly should go straight to the Smithsonian. So it's one of those letters. He loves, but I do think, it probably didn't help him with finding future employment, just because, most owners don't like 10 pages on the exit,
Yeah.
Doing a nice quiet, we mutually parted.
Yeah.
We all chose together. So.
Well, we should get start with the Sam stuff so we can get that sort of out of the way. I guess my biggest question for you is, so you hire him and you work with him, and
No, here's the thing. I didn't hire him.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the little known part of the story. So basically, Leslie Alexander, who was the owner at the time, he was moving in this direction. He came from Wall Street, very smart guy, and was looking for people who could move things in this direction. Sam was younger than me, hadn't worked like I had with the Celtics, so I don't think he thought Sam was quite ready, even though he probably was, to be frank. And I I came in, I think about a year after he was hired. But the owner of the Rockets, was sort of building out this capability, and and Sam could have handled it, been very mad I was hired, but I think mostly he was just looking for friends, because the first year was tough. Not a lot of support within the organization when he first came in.
So I didn't know that. I don't think any of it. Like I did that. That is actually because he is seen, at least with us, and I think as many people, as sort of a student of yours, or came up under you, and worked with you. So you guys work together, and you work very closely with him, and he takes the Sixers job. I'm wondering what it feels like to be close to him, but watch from afar the sort of deity. And the deidizing and the demonizing of him, and becoming such a large polarizing figure. What's that look like to you from afar?
I mean, I was happy because he was just really doing what we try to do in Houston, which is like, what's the best path to winning the title? And when I came to Houston, there was Yao Ming, there was Tracy McGrady. There was this infrastructure that really just needed good role players. And I think in 2009, we really hit our zenith, and we had a good chance to win after bringing in guys like Lowry and Landry and, Aaron Brooks. And I mean, I could go Ron Artest and Shane Battier. And so we sort of built and that was the right move with Houston. When he went to Philly, I knew that he was going to look at it and say the right move is to take 2 or 3 steps back and then build up, because in this business, as you've heard Sam talk 1,000 times, you need these elite players to win, and there really wasn't any when he first took over the Sixers.
So when you're watching him decide maybe Spencer Hawes and Evan Turner are not the guys to build a championship team around, and getting like pretty publicly wrecked for it. Like, does it feel weird to, as a guy that you worked with and as a friend, to not be like, hey man, he's right though, like chill?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The job is very hard, and unfortunately, you might have to do things in different phases. And I think that's why I felt like Sam was meant for greater things, because he just wanted to build a great team, maybe one of the all-time great teams. And unfortunately, this job is like bigger than that in a bunch of ways, in some ways that it shouldn't be, where sometimes the best thing for the team is just surviving into the future such that you can continue to make moves. So, Billy Beane's a good friend, and he said that once, that unfortunately in this job you have to send out the gladiators every once in a while to distract the crowd. Like, it has to be fun. It has to be fun throughout. You have to curry favors where you might not necessarily want to do it with media and things like that. And I think, Sam understood that, but he also was like, I'm going to just focus on making this a great team. And I think that's what made everyone so excited, including myself, that he was able to do this sort of peer play. But I think the Barbarians at the Gate eventually got him. Unfortunately, that was he needed to throw a Coliseum out there to distract him while he was trying to build the team. Unfortunately, was my sense.
It is interesting you brought up Billy Beane, in that you and the critics, obviously, of you and somebody like Billy Beane and somebody like Sam, is that it's a very this or that thing, in that they will look at you and say that it's almost as if you don't watch basketball or don't care about basketball, and Billy Beane doesn't care about baseball. You only care about what is on the spreadsheet. I would imagine that characterization of how you guys look at the game is frustrating at times.
Yeah, I think obviously when people are trying to knock someone down or be critics, one of the easiest strategies, well, there's two really. One is ad hominem, which is like, the Charles Barkley, couldn't get the girls stuff, which unfortunately lands. I mean, the Charles rant, and I actually really love Charles. I think to me, his job is to be an entertainer, and he's one of the all-time greats. And when he had his rant, sort of anti-analytics, anti-me, I thought it was so funny. I thought, and he kept like nailing me for not having girls in high school, and I was like, man, the truth hurts at times. It's tough. So
But those things don't have to be related.
exactly. But yeah, no, it's interesting. What was your original question again?
I guess just the characterization that
Yeah.
basketball and basketball and observation and what you see is not at all part of the equation, and that you don't.
Yeah, right.
care
So the
about it.
two lines of attack are ad hominem, which is just like, he didn't play basketball, whatever. But then the other line of attack is to set up straw mans. And so, yeah, if you're Charles Barkley or someone and say, look, it's all about the stats, and to him, the stats are like what he saw in a box score when he was playing in the 80s. And if you say that's what it's about and you're running your team based on that, yeah, if that is what you think someone's doing, I would criticize the hell out of that too, because that's really stupid. So they set up straw mans. They say like, oh, it's just a spreadsheet. It's just using stats. But really all it is my job's no different than Red Auerbach in 1950 when he was running the Celtics, which is make great decisions all the time on draft, on trade, on free agency. And using data helps that. And using better data, more data, better analysis helps make those decisions. But at the end of the day, they're all human decisions. No spreadsheet's making any trade. You could set up like some sort of automated bot that could send out emails or something maybe, but they're all human decisions. We're just trying to do them better.
That sounds more like a Hinkie thing.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna streamline email by having automated bot respond to all of mine.
Yeah.
Well, another just random thing people don't understand is like the way you make transactions with the league is still just emails. Like in theory, if someone could spoof my email, they could just send an email to the league that says waive James Harden. And technically I would hope the league office would check, right?
I guess I want to waive him.
Yeah, in the last CBA, they made this agreement to like set up this new system that's secure, but we've got bigger issues right now, so they haven't done it. So yeah, anyone can just waive any player if they can just spoof the email of a GM somewhere.
We've been spending all this time trying to like talk publicly about what the Sixers should do, and we should just have spent that time
breaking into
faking an email and just doing it ourselves.
You could have just done it. Yeah,
It's so much easier.
Ned Cohen will be so mad if this is out there now. So.
We take a break from our conversation with Daryl Morey. Daryl, hang on a second. I know you're in the
right there.
Yeah, I know you have limited time, but we got to talk about our sponsor, Touchstone Electric Fireplaces.
Tell PJ Tucker he can wait.
Yes, tell PJ Tucker. Look, I think a Touchstone Electric Fireplace would look great in PJ Tucker's home, wherever it is.
Why don't you read this ad to PJ Tucker?
Yeah, why don't you take notes, Daryl? ZeroDeadBirds.com. ZeroDeadBirds.com is where you go to get your Touchstone electric fireplace from Touchstone Home Products, located right here in Exton, PA. The reason it's ZeroDeadBirds.com, that wasn't their website until I decided that it was something they should talk about. Having a real fireplace is a pain in the ass. Chimneys, dead birds in the chimney, ash on your, like you have to clean up from it. The smell. Do you want your couch smelling like peaty scotch? No, of course you don't want your couch to smell like a campfire. That's why the Touchstone electric fireplace is better. It's more efficient. There's no cleanup. There's no dead birds in the chimney. It fits right there in your wall. You turn it off, you turn it on. By the way, you don't have to worry about poking the flame with the poker or whatever. You don't have to worry about buying wood. It looks great every time. No smell, no mess. 5 flame intensities on the Touchstone electric fireplace. From a low-key ember style flame to a high flame setting for very intense. Very easy DIY installation. You can do it. They will give you the instructions for that as well.
I want you to get this fireplace. I want you to install it leave it on very high during Sixers games, so you can just sweat out the toxins.
Done. Actually, I'm going to do that. I'm gonna call Frank this week at Touchstone. I have room right under my television. I'm gonna put it right under my television. Another decision I've made for my wife that she did not ask about or was consulted, but I'm making the decision right now. And
There you go.
here's the thing: you want to put it. I've seen in the gallery at zerodeadbirds.com. There's some people that have them underneath their TV. You can do that. Depending on where you want to put it, they have all sorts of sizes: 36 inches wide to 100 inches wide. Just go to the site. Go to zerodeadbirds.com. Use promo code TTP. You can see the gallery and where they are, or if you're watching on YouTube, you've seen them here. Use promo code TTP for 15% off, and they'll get you they'll get it to you quick. They're working right there in the warehouse, delivery in 2 to 3 days max. And if you have any questions at all, they have chat on the site, they have email, they have the phone. They're ready to take care of you. Touchstone electric fireplaces, zerodeadbirds.com, promo code TTP. Back to Mr. Morey.
I was wondering, I think Spike also had this question, but you commented when us and a bunch of other folks, at the lottery party, we raised the Hinkie banner, which was one of the all-time dumbest things.
No, it's so good. That was unbelievable.
What was it like watching that, and how does it feel to not have your own banner at this point, despite having a way longer tenure and more successful one than Sam?
I'm thrilled to have no banner, but I was so happy Sam had one because I just gave him endless crap about it because he definitely hated it, but like it was the best. Like I'd send him that GIF of the banner going up like every few days just to harass him. So that was great. And that's at a bar or something. I haven't been to the bar. I need to go to the bar. So.
Yeah, we did an event at a place called Xfinity Live for the lottery every year called the Lottery Party, and at that point it was like 3,000 people. We would go. So it was right after. Was it the year after? I think it was the year after Sam was gone. We decided to raise the banner.
Yeah, wasn't it the next month?
No, it was the next year.
Still too sore from all the bruising.
My only insight into Philly fans, and by the way, some of the best fans in the world, is my wife who grew up in New Jersey. And when Sam got the job, she told Sam, she's like, dude, you are in trouble. Like, they are crazy. Like, I'm not sure you're going to make it more than a few years. And she was completely right.
Nailed it.
not for the reasons maybe she thought. Because I think the fans were pretty behind him, it seemed like. I don't know. That was my sense.
It grew as there were really just like three camps. There were people that were like way behind it, like us. There were the people who were absolutely hated it. And I think we only made up, both those camps probably made up 40%, whereas the other 60% just sort of checked out because the Sixers stunk, which is the unspoken group of people who were just sort of waiting for them to be good.
When Sam left, I thought Jeff Van Gundy had a really good take because he loved Sam, and we worked with Jeff for 1 year, and you know he's got the take that like the whole rebuilding thing is a big scam, which I'm sure some of which is like, you know, we're gonna be good in like 6 years, you know, just as a way to, you know, and he's a very smart guy, so like in some ways some of those criticisms can land, right, especially if you don't do good things while you're building, but he was basically like, you know, they trick coaches all the time. They're like, hey, come on in, be the coach, we're rebuilding, and then someday we'll be good. And he was like, it finally happened to a GM. GM was like, hey, come in and do the rebuild, and then bring in someone else over the top. So, anyway, sorry, I've hijacked your podcast.
No, that's what. We just had Chuck Klosterman on this past weekend. If anybody, it was 2 hours of him hijacking the podcast. It was great. So don't worry about
2 hours. He's very good.
Yeah.
He's very good. So.
It's funny. So when the bubble concept comes up, the most interesting thing that we can think about is sending like our reporter guy to the bubble to say what it's like. And all the reports from the bubble seemed like the most uninteresting thing in the world.
Yeah, super boring.
I guess from inside of it, like, is there anything that's interesting, or is it just really a bunch of people in hotels and like almost like summer league without Vegas? It seems like.
Yeah, I mean we're joking that it's like, I was joking with one of our players, and Where should I go? Oh, should I go to my room or go to this team room or walk around the yard? Like we get our yard time in back
Nice.
to our rooms.
Yeah.
No, the league's done tremendous. I mean, honestly, like unbelievable job. And we're all here for a reason, which is we love basketball, and at least for the Rockets, I think we have a good shot to win it. But it's not like anyone would choose to spend 3 months in this situation unless we were here for, I think, obviously our jobs and a great reason. So.
What's the situation as far as who's hanging out with who from like a front office and coaching staff? Is there like outside of practice mingling with players? Is there like hey, I hang out if you guys are like hanging out and playing pool?
Yeah, no, you have it right that I think it's been like I've had several coaches who are like, let's go somewhere for training camp, and a lot of teams do this, and let's stay focused as a team and have a lot of interaction, but it never quite works because even when we've done it, there's always distractions. Like we did it in Austin one year, we did it in South Texas one year, and there's still here. There's none. So yeah, there's a lot of, we had a poker game with myself and some staff and players. We got this cornhole tournament with, it's a mix of players and staff, and players are really bad at cornhole. That's one thing we've learned. Turns out these unbelievable best athletes in the world, we can take them down as long as it's throwing a beanbag into a round hole. So, so it's been, there's a lot of interaction, and it's exactly what coaches have always wanted for like a training camp environment that I've worked with.
The one of the things actually, because the Sixers had such like an enormous home road split, is that we've been thinking about these games and whether they're more like home games or road games. Would you say that the games would be more similar to a road game or more similar to a home game?
More similar to a road game, yeah, because you're in a hotel room. You're not
tough answer.
Yeah,
yeah.
For us, yeah,
yeah. You were thinking of that question all day, right?
Yeah. We're just gonna keep asking people until one of us gives them the answer that we want. Actually.
Oh, you want it to be a home game? Interesting.
Well, I suppose that if your team is 28-2 at home and like has one of the worst road records in the league, you're gonna.
Well, one thing that's good for you, and if you had Sam on, he'd tell you this. Like those home road splits are mostly nonsense. So like it's just randomly whether your threes went in and shit like that most of the time.
Do you really believe that? You don't really.
Not for the Sixers.
Yeah.
I did say most. I always qualify my statement so I can wiggle out later.
Sure. It's a good wiggle.
I said most of the time.
Right.
I haven't. I'd have to look at the Sixers to tell you if I thought.
I think your wife. I think your wife would tell you that the threat of being booed by Philadelphia fans actually does make a difference there.
That can go both ways. Like people have this perception that contract years are always this amazing thing for players, like their focus. But honestly, if you look at the data, and we don't really know why, you can just speculate that just as many players maybe get nervous or, lose their confidence in it because they know the pressure the contract year is but there isn't this really clear contract year effect. There's generally never been a consistent home court edge. Utah has had one. Denver's had one for, we think, altitude reasons. But there's really never been like a consistent home road for most teams. But who knows? Who knows? I would think they'd be afraid of shooting a three at home. Just again for fear of the hordes getting them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
One of the things I've jokingly said often is that the home advantage for Denver teams is too much. The altitude thing is actually unfair. So you believe like it definitely is an actual thing, or you don't believe so?
Yeah, I think this is years ago, so I'd have to go back and look. I know Utah for sure had a consistent edge. I believe Denver did, but we're talking small though. Like most of these edges they matter because it's like I want to say like 0.2 or something.
Yeah.
Something really material, but not really that big of a deal. We tried to minimize the Denver impact because you can do things like train at different altitudes, like the Olympic. But all the studies unfortunately say you can't. You like to build up your ability to play at a high altitude takes much too long. So even in a playoff series, they would have an edge there. So.
You're in the bubble. What happens if some like random staffer, you're like the last person that you brought there, or even like the last person you signed, which is Luke Bamute, like gets the entire team infected with this virus?
Yeah. Again, that was like a percent. I don't see how it's possible. The NBA has done such a good job with the protocols. I mean, you're not out of your room until everything's safe. So, I think there's this theory, and we still need to test it, which is guys are going to break the rules and sneak girls in and all that, and maybe that's coming, but I haven't seen it. It's the few players that have left, and they're immediately. I mean, there's cameras everywhere. I mean, we're there's really you can't really get away with anything.
So there's an edge. We're always looking for an edge on other teams. There's an edge to hiring a spy type person to infecting other teams with the virus. If if you really want to win, you could do that.
I saw that. Have you seen that Reddit? I love Reddit because you get good ideas. But one bad idea was having like your 12th, 13th, 14th guy, go grab LeBron and carry him outside.
Yes.
I'm imagining the league would frown on this idea.
Yeah, probably.
Might not. Might not.
Sort of goes against the friendly nature of.
Yeah. So I think, but actually, legit, like we try to get ideas from our ever Reddit. We have like ideas at rocketball.com if you ever want to send one in, and now you can wave a player.
Oh yeah.
So the way that this happens is like you on this podcast is Twitter basically is like, first there was the banner and then there was the whole thing about Andrew Yang talking about Sam and you tweeting about it.
Yeah. Yang Gang. I was so excited.
Yeah.
You had Andrew on.
Yeah. Well, and he knew where he was, by the way, like that comment about him putting Hinkie in was not from a question. It was just at the end. He was like, by the way, I'm going to make a promise. Like he knew what he was doing. Yeah.
I love that he was like, I don't really pay attention. Then he got into like your rights held guys.
Yeah, he knew exactly what was going on.
Work on Aldemir. I thought he was going to be something, but I don't really pay attention too much. but I really thought he was going to be somebody. So.
So do we. So that's a good screen.
Yeah. I'm wondering what. So it was funny. It's such an interesting comparison between you and Sam, and that Sam didn't want to talk to anyone, didn't want to was not public unless he had to be. And here is you, basically you're a pretty online guy in that way. I'm wondering what we get a lot of feedback online, and I find it to be hard to deal with mentally, the negative stuff. The positive stuff I love, but even if we get 100 positive feedbacks and one negative, it's really hard to not carry that negative. I'm wondering, what is your makeup that you decide that is a positive thing for you?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One is, if you take a step back from just the winning, now winning's the best way to provide an entertaining product. So clearly that should be 85, 90% of the job. But at the end of the day, if you take a step back, we are in the job of entertainment. We are here so that people like to tune into the Houston Rockets. And I think part of that is they want to, be behind the people who are the players, ownership, our season ticket sales people. We're all sort of part of the brand of Rockets. And so I've always seen it that way. I sort of came from a different background. I worked in baseball in the 90s, but I worked in a whole bunch of different industries before I got a chance to work in basketball. So anyway, I think it works best when you're authentic to a brand and you're all say, we're moving in a direction so everyone can get behind. So that's always been a focus. On the negative folks on Twitter, I think, honestly, like I said, with Charles picking on me, sometimes correctly, I think a lot of driven people who are maniacal about something like I am about winning and sports and things like that. often didn't have the cleanest childhood in terms of like getting along with other people and things like that. So I've, for better or worse, pretty used to getting my ass kicked. So, I don't think, the Twitter folks don't bother me. But I have had players, though, I don't want to say which player, they would like read their phone at halftime and like get one stray comment from someone on Twitter, and I'm convinced it would throw them into like a bad mental space. So it's a real thing. I do think there's a real human phenomenon that if you get 100 good comments and one bad, that you're still probably giving the bad comment 55% weight and the 100 good at 45% weight. So
that leads us really nicely into Brian Colangelo. I have to ask, when you're watching the Ringer story break and seeing the stuff he tweeted, and as like, there's 30 people with your job, 29 other ones, and like it's a very elite job, and this idea that a guy would, and other people have done this also in other fields, so it's not like it's the only thing, but like create like secret burner accounts to like clap back at people that don't agree with them. Like, what are you thinking as you go through that? Like, do you empathize with that like psychology, or is that just like, oh man, what a disaster?
This is a tough one. I would say I was just very surprised. I didn't know if it was real because, obviously now they've actually got sophisticated tools, and maybe they were using them even at the time to like identify these things based on who you follow and your sentiment rating of like the kinds of things you say. So at first I was like, oh, that can't be true. But it was like it was like a car wreck. Like you couldn't turn away.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was
in some ways for me it's still crashing.
Yeah, no, I saw that someone did a like a more in-depth study just recently. What's that kid's name?
Adam. Sixers
Adam. Yeah.
He's on our staff.
He's on.
Yeah.
You have a staff of 100. Is that?
What do we have? 7? We have 7 people. We got 7 folks.
Really?
Yeah, we have.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, we have 3 writers, an artist, us 2, and a guy that writes our newsletter. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. That's
we
cool.
just make them write Brian Colangelo burner retrospectives over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Brian's done a lot of amazing things in his career, and whatever. I don't know enough. It's hard for me to comment on. On that
for
one.
Sure.
But I would say the phenomenon, though, and we've had players who've been caught up. Yeah, it's a strange phenomenon. It definitely. Yeah, it's people who don't really. I grew up in the online world. I got my first computer. This was part of the reason I had a rough childhood. Like, I mean, I had a computer when I was like 5 years old, and I sort of grew up in the computer era and bulletin boards and Wildcat BB, everything. And so I'm used to this world. And so if you come to it later and don't really understand the culture, of like even a Reddit, you can make mistakes that immediately you're labeled as like, a noob. And so, making burner accounts is a really bad idea. Always, like you're gonna be found out.
Just text your friends.
They don't even influence anything. Like
nothing.
So it's not like you make an amazing comment from your burner account, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, that's the greatest comment ever." I'm gonna.
Yeah. Oh, I guess his collars are pretty cool. All right.
Yeah.
You made a good point.
So I'll let you talk about that.
The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by the official jeweler of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast and The Process and all of our listeners, the official jeweler of quarantine. That is one, LL Pavorsky Jewelers. Very happy to see Will Negron. Will and his brother Eric are longtime Ricky guys. Will, I think, was 185 for LL, number 185. But
wow.
Will, and I think he's up to 186. I think LL is up to 186 or 187. But Will successfully proposed to his girlfriend and now has a fiance. Happened during the COVID pandemic, Mike. This is just love. Look, the one thing that this pandemic has not slowed down, 2 things are this podcast and unsensibly, and love sensibly. So if you
You
want,
might have let out some love.
yeah.
I don't know. We can't confirm that.
It depends on. I guess it depends on the love. It depends on the love.
Maybe you love yourself and realize that you and your spouse are no longer for each other.
Yes, maybe you have more confidence now. You never know. Look. Maybe you found a new love and you want to propose to that person. Look, LL is here for you. The store is open. If you're comfortable going to the store, it is by appointment only.
There should be like a divorce ring.
Well, who gets it? I don't understand. Do you give
Anyone,
somebody
whoever
the
wants
ring
it.
if you want to get divorced?
Yeah, you guys go like, hey, well, we had a nice time, and now I will wear this ring as a sign of the fact that I'm divorced. I have baggage, romantically, and that we shared something special for a time.
Wow, that would really make you attractive to potential new partners.
Just come out and say it. There's, you have your Facebook status or whatever that says like, say divorced or whatever, single.
Well,
Whatever.
Look,
Is divorce a Facebook status? I don't actually know.
do they still have relationship status? And they do.
You could.
Yeah.
I think you could.
I actually want to look now. Actually, I don't want to accidentally change it, so I'm not gonna do that.
I'm gonna change mine to divorced.
Yeah. Well, if you want a divorced ring, go to LL too. If you want to go in person, the store's open by appointment only. We always recommend an appointment anyway. If you're going to do an engagement ring, it makes sense to reach out to LL first. Just send him a note, lee@llpavorsky.com, or call 215-627-2252. If you're more comfortable doing it on the phone or video chat or some reason, that is he can do that as well. And for every pod, LL with donating to Coded by Kids and the Providence Animal Center. So, and go get your divorce rings now if you're thinking about getting divorced. Give it to your partner.
Yeah, that's the way to divorce. That's how you hand it to them. That's how you break the news. Here, I got you this ring.
Get down on the other knee.
Get on the other knee. Either gender, whoever can do it.
Yeah. Oh man. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
The general manager. You'll like this, Daryl. Of love.
Back to Daryl Morey. Yeah, I'm curious. So we all oftentimes here talk about like who has final say and who's in charge, and there's a lot of talk about like collaboration here and like ownership. Can you talk about when you are in your specific position, not the owner, but in charge of like basketball operations? At what point does the collaboration sort of stop and you have to go, okay, and how do you deliver that message, and when do you know it's time? And then, like, what is that process like for you?
I love that question, because this whole process is really not well understood, and there's a lot of like memes and thoughts about how decisions are made at teams that lack, just awareness. So first off, there's this perception like you want the owner, just keep the owner away. No, owner bad. Random other dude good. Like, that's not. So I think owners, especially if they're good at asking the right questions, good at thinking through things, you want the owner involved. And here's why. People in my job can get short-sighted. They can be worried about the next 2 years, the next 3 years versus the long-term health of the franchise. The only person in the entire organization of a team that has the same incentives as the fans is the owner. So like having the owner involved, I do think is a good thing. I know, with maybe the exception of some franchises where it's maybe obvious that it's not, but so the owner's always involved. A lot of and at least at the Rockets, and I'm sure this was at the Sixers, we start with the notion we don't have any idea what we're doing. Like, just because I think a player's really good, or maybe I've seen him, first off, I usually keep that opinion to myself, because people can start aligning around like who I think is good if they get a sense of that. So we basically are aggregating a bunch of experts to get to a decision, and then I'll get to your question because I know I'm sort of going around it.
No, this is what we wanted.
Yeah, in terms of the final decision, though, we sort of call it. I mean, from a basketball analogy, we call it the pull up and shoot moment. Like, at some point you've got to make a final call. Usually that's after I'm trying to take in all the data, um, have a recommendation, talk to ownership, get their buy. If it's a trade or free agency, you got a little more time because there's not usually a exact moment. Free agency can be quicker. Trades are usually a little slower until the deadline. The draft, obviously, you have to make a pick, so like that's nice. And yeah, there's a final, like generally you just say here's a recommendation, and sometimes there's no right answer. People like perceive like there's a good move and there's not a good move, but a lot of times with trades, especially like you know we go this way, we're going to get a higher risk player. And maybe that's right, but it could blow up in our face. This one's a little more safe, and we might be able to exit that move if the player doesn't work. Which one we want to go? Not always obvious the right answer. It's not like there's just one path at any given point. So, yeah, generally I make a recommendation, and then ownership approves it. That's the final moment. So
You guys have no draft picks in the 2020 draft,
that's
or whenever
moment.
it's going to happen.
At the moment, yeah.
At the moment, and you're
Lots
already
of
in the
undrafted draft picks. Yeah.
right. And so yeah, that's my question. So you're already in the hole a few picks over the next couple of years, also, which is pretty much the opposite of how Sam ran things
Right.
here. Is it because
No,
you just
Sam
had to
would
move?
be probably more aggressive with having no picks right now
You
than
think?
we are. Yeah, just so the whole reason you build up all the capital, and he did
Right.
the best job I've ever seen, I think, at building it up, is at the time when you have a chance to win it, and this is one of the most open years. You go forward, and there's a prominent player who could have been traded for even on a 1 year rental a year ago. I could see him just piling all into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's a big misnomer. And Sam, they're like, oh, he only knew how to tear down. He didn't know how to
Of
build.
course.
Well, first off, he didn't have a chance. Second
Yeah.
off, for sure, he would aggressively gone. So Andrew Friedman's a really good friend. He runs the Dodgers now, ran the Rays, and he was the first that I heard him articulate it really well back in 08 when I met with him. You have to be on a success cycle, which is, when you're down, you got to build up your store in the armory as much as possible. And then when you're up, you've got to use it all to eke out small advantages to increase your chance to win. And you're going to go through these cycles, but that's fine. That's natural. We've managed to stay good. That's been sort of an accident of history. One is,
Right.
the team was already good, and we just needed our role players to have a chance. Then we were about to have a really horrible year. The year we traded for James Harden, we were gonna win like 25 to 30, and we can estimate that pretty well, as you know. So we were gonna have a bad year. Just we happened to trade for James right in that year because we had sent Lowry out to create this draft pick that we hoped we could trade, but we didn't know when it was going to come. It could have been 2 years later. So, at the end of the current era of the team, after we've won 2 titles this year and next year, there's probably going to be a lean year. I mean, like it's almost impossible in the NBA not to go through some downturns. So.
Well, because sorry, the second part was that is it also because you there's inherently less of a difference and a wide variance from people's draft boards from maybe they have a similar top 10, but from 15 to 65, you could switch that all around. So there's their value in just being well, yeah, we could get the 28th pick in the draft, but we could probably get a guy that we want undrafted.
That's
like Daniel
100%
House.
Right. Yeah. So the draft has gotten a little more consensus driven. It hasn't actually gotten better, shockingly, but we haven't. The league as a whole hasn't gotten that much better drafting, but the draft boards have come closer together, at least based on our analysis. And you're right. Yeah, you get to pick 15, and most of those guys, 15 to 17, will go by 32 at worst, right? People just have and then when you're down into your 22, 23, 24 ranked guy, yeah, that guy could go anywhere from as early as 35 35 to 40, but also could go undrafted. You're 100% right. And we've had a great history with undrafted guys. Toronto's been crushing it with undrafted guys. I do think the talent level in college on the tail has gone up. So that's also made, like, a lot of it's more fit as you get down the talent curve. It's more fit to what role you need, how you play. You know, we switch a lot. We do a lot of things where certain guys will. So yeah, I do think, yeah, you can really crush it undrafted right now. So.
Speaking of undrafted, we are very pro Robert Covington
as are we
podcast, and he was at one of our live shows once. We love we took a road trip to Minnesota just to visit him and Dario once, like 400 people. We love Covington. We'll have to send
a road trip, like the 22-hour drive.
No, so we took a flight. It was like 450 people, and we went to the Minnesota.
450 people.
Yeah, ask Covington about it. He'll tell you about it. Like he loves it.
I'll ask Rob about it.
Yeah. So I guess so. He is in your system. He's on Rio Grande, and then Sam gets him. Why is he? Did Sam see something in Rob that you didn't, or was it just a matter of he had the opportunity and you didn't? How did you let him get away?
Yeah, it's a little both. So, I mean, clearly he became so good, we shouldn't have cut him. So I think, you know, one of the things that's really important in this job is just to say when you messed up. Like, and obviously we did a good job. And it even made the letter. I thought Sam was like, he was like the guy in Da Vinci Code is whipping himself. You know, like, I spoke to the media once, and Rob Covington got out of my hands.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, honestly, that was my favorite part of the letter. But everyone else likes that he quoted like 13th century philosophers no one's heard of. Yeah. I like that he's self-flagellating over talking to the media one time in his whole career, and he misses on Rob Covington. But anyway, so yeah, the real thing with Rob was, look, we were a good team when we waived him, and you know, we looked at it and we had a roster crunch, and this was a guy that we had guys ahead of him, just was not going to play. So again, yeah, I messed up. We cut him. I don't know if he flourishes. You never know. Like, I think obviously getting like thousands of minutes of playing time he wouldn't have had with the Rockets really helped him advance to being the unbelievable player he is today. And so, yeah, we were pretty obsessed with reacquiring him for a long time, and just never could quite get it to a range until this trade deadline. So,
yeah, we definitely miss him a lot.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moment on this podcast ever, I think, was after the Sixers lost in the second round to Boston, Ben's rookie year, and Covington had a really bad series against the Celtics, and he was scheduled to be at the lottery party, and we were like, fuck. Is he gonna get booed? There was like 3,000 people there. We're like, Covington can't get booed at the lottery party. We were like, I was just like begging people to not do it, and then he comes out, and it's like the loudest applause I've ever heard in my life. And it was just like, it was such, and you could tell on his face that he was like so relieved and so happy about it. It was like, it was a genuinely beautiful.
Yeah, and
moment.
I think he was the only survivor of the Sam Hinkie FU 4-year non-guaranteed contract. Like he. Yeah. Like, because I think they signed
TJ a little bit.
TJ McConnell also, I think, had the same deal.
Okay, yeah. So Robert was the only survivor of the 4-year.
Yeah. Oh, told you we're a pro TJ pod too. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, did you see, last Covington question, but did you see, you know, when he came to the Sixers, his key value was he was the first person we saw that could shoot in a very long time. And would shoot and shot from far away, and it was like
it seems to be a common issue with you.
Yeah, yes.
It really is.
But the defensive development is something that like we had never even considered was possible. Was that something that you saw early on, or was that like, did that sort of come out of nowhere?
Yeah, I mean, he was on one of the all-time great G League teams, and you know his impact on defense was tremendous already.
Okay.
So, no, I mean, there's really, we should have somehow kept him, but. You know, we probably would have lost him in free agency, but at this point, so you know, you never know how things are going to go. So, the Sixers did a tremendous job. I think it was actually after Sam left that they signed him to that deal. It was a really well done. And yeah, we probably wouldn't have gotten him on that deal. And so now he's on that deal. It's great for us. So
Yeah, you're welcome.
yeah. So thank you to whoever signed him. I forget which regime.
It was Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stop picking on Brian, man.
There you go. Come on, he's got a big target on his back. I was wondering, like, we were talking about it a little bit. You're going to say that you don't know anything, and you're kind of just guessing a lot of the time. But like, how do you know? How can you talk to a guy pre-draft or pre-free agency if it's somebody like, a more of a reclamation project that didn't work out in the first place, like a Ben McLemore, and talk to these people and be like, we think you're going to get better. Like the person, because everybody coming out of college is like good.
Mm-hmm. They're shockingly good. People have no
idea. And so, but the idea is like, how are you going to be able to, learn, adjust on the fly to NBA like speed and also schemes and also like just reads quickly. And what do you like determine that, and how do you determine based on like, as a freshman, this guy, I think about Quincy Miller a lot because I really thought he was great at Baylor just as a random guy, and he just didn't get good enough.
But versus like decent European career, he played 5 or 6 years.
Which I follow, of course, Daryl. But as like a senior, it's like you expect more. I'm going to name a guy that you can't talk about, but like Terrence Davis, who was a 4-year guy for Toronto, like versus those are obviously at different points in their careers, and how do you just weigh that kind of thing?
So you're right. I mean, the biggest answer is it's very difficult. Like the draft is provably hard. Like you can look at the data, and our best estimate is that we're explaining like 30% of their future performance, and it's 70% error. And we don't know what that error is. We're trying to collapse it and understand it better. But it's good for us that the draft is pretty variable because we don't have high picks generally. In terms of explaining it to them, we generally pick later. So most of these guys, and it's become pretty understood, just like baseball, that you're going to be in the G League for a while. So we can point to all these guys who went to our G League team, like Robert Covington, and now are making tens of millions in the NBA, and we can explain that we have this path for you, and that's pretty compelling to those players. But in terms of like, I wish we had I'm so jealous of baseball. We have these huge minor league systems because you can create this systemic edge, and I like to compare it in the NBA. Unfortunately, we only get 17 guys we can hold rights to. And, it's more, we have more like elephant babies, whereas like we only get one baby every like 2 years that we can really, and in baseball, they're just like frog babies, like where they have like thousands of eggs, and I would love to have just frog babies versus elephant babies, where our minor league system could create a systemic edge. And we try to do that, but it's very hard with the very few number of bets we get to make. So.
Let's say you are general manager of a team, and this team has a chance of winning a championship, and your coach disappeared.
Like the Rockets.
Yeah, like the Rockets. Okay. Well, I was just saying a general one. And for some reason, your coach is gone. He decides he doesn't want to coach anymore. And you have a choice between two coaches. One coach, his relationship with players is a 10, and strategically, he's about a 5. The other coach, strategically, he's a 10. As good as there goes, relationship with players is a 5. Which coach do you choose?
So I just have one question. Is his relationship with players league-wide? Like,
yes,
all players love him?
He is
the first one, no doubt. Yeah.
The relationship guy.
Yeah, because, I mean, having a coach that players want to play for is super important in the NBA because, you need to be, and in Houston, maybe it's not true in a smaller market. It's hard to recruit, but people like playing in Philly. They like playing in Houston. I want a coach who, and on the strategic side, I wish there were huge differences on how teams play, but there are. I mean, there are important differences, but they're not. Long way of saying it's much more important to get the top player than to have them be in the exact perfect system, if that makes sense. So.
The Sixers have just discovered a pick and roll, so maybe there's not quite a little
it's
different.
Useful, it turns out. It makes it so that the defender can't just stand in front of their guy.
That's right.
And
That's
guard
right.
the whole game. I mean, who knew?
I think I saw that graph.
Yeah.
Does Mike D'Antoni consider himself part of the Brett Brown coaching tree?
He did work for him.
They're friendly.
We take credit. We got to take credit
Yeah,
where we can get.
Yeah, I think Mike was given really huge responsibility with Brett. I think he got like the post free throw offense or something like that. Yeah, that was the job. But actually, no, Mike really did talk about. I mean, one thing great about him, he was at MIT very early. He's worked with lots of different coaches, including Brett, and he's just like a constant learner. I mean, like that's from his background being in Europe, different systems, different styles. So actually, I'm gonna have to sign off because of my cornhole match. I could do one more question though, but thanks for having me on.
I got one, Spike. If you don't.
Go ahead.
And then you can ask us if you want any advice on cornhole or any strategy. The Rockets and Sixers, I feel like more than any other team, doubled down over the past year or so. Rockets on versatility and we don't even really need a traditional center in the way that you think of to screen for Harden. And the Sixers we'll have like 4 or 5 centers at the same time, just being big and basically taking, escalating what they had with Toronto in that series where they were just wore them down. How do you think about that as far as we want to play as, is that the edge that you just have to, for every team, has to find their thing?
Yeah, I think what's important is that from the owner to the GM to the coach to the players, you have a consistent plan, and that you're trying to find if anyone studies biology, you're trying to find in this landscape of fitness where you're trying to stand out, you're occupying your niche, right? And so what we found is we played the best small and we were not playing as well big. So it wasn't that hard to say, look, we can't match up big with the Sixers or the Lakers or, Denver, I guess, has all 7-footers now or something. So we're going to make them try to match up with us, and let's see who blinks first. Will be us or them. And to me, that playing the middle doesn't make a lot of sense. When you have to be the best of 30, you can't really play the middle. You've got to go for what your edge is, if that makes sense. So.
We appreciate all the time. It was, again, I said a long time coming. You are now you're part of the community. You're part of the right.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah.
So
we have we have Clutch fans in Houston, which is a really strong community.
Well, they should get to work on the banner then.
Yeah. You deserve a banner.
No, I do not. Oh, if we win the title, I'll want a Rockets banner. But,
all right.
I think it's best if Sam is the only one with
a banner. Yeah.
I think that's best. That should be all for him. So.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, guys.
And there we go, Mr. Daryl Morey finally on the pod. It just seems as if we've had basically everyone connected to the process originally on the podcast, except for maybe 1 or 2 people, I think, left.
There's still a list.
Yeah.
There's still a long list. I still want the Brian Colangelo interview.
Barbara Buttini, obviously.
Barbara is number 1 for me. Will always be. There's still some players we got to interview. Some figures in this odd tangled web of characters we've weaved over the last decade.
And the thing about people bring up Hinkie all the time. Hinkie was on, so I obviously we would love to have Sam on again, but that box is checked. That was checked early on. As you mentioned in the last pod, he might have been our first guest ever. So yeah, Hinkie done. So it was him or Eric Snow. Those are the one of them happened.
There's no way to check who was first. There's just no way to know.
All right. Well, the Sixers play again on Sunday, right? I do agree with Zoe's take that I would love to see between 15 and 25 minutes of Mariel Shayok.
That's priority number 1.
Yeah, priority number 1. And then
sign up for the newsletter.
Sign up for the newsletter. Rights to RickySanchez.com/newsletter. As we mentioned, the playoff shirt is out now. If you have the newsletter, you get 10% off of all of our merch, but the promo code changes every 2 weeks. So I think it changes again on the 29th. So just
great shirt.
Yeah,
it's a great shirt.
Yeah, and we have new masks coming.
I love that.
Very soon, within the next 2 weeks. Very excited about that as well.
And wear your masks. Why not?
Dude, it's pretty easy.
Come on. Any other parting words? Eat your vegetables.
Eat your vegetables, and that's it. I love everybody. Are you done with TTP?
Yeah. You know, like this.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you! Time for plan B.